This week on the podcast, we welcome a sought-after and emerging thought leader, media surrogate, and former Republican nominee for Congress, Tamika Hamilton.
The way the consultants always say is like, go first with try to get your base and then move back to the middle. I'm not an expert, but just from what I see, I don't think that is the answer anymore. I think we have to go straight to the middle because there's too many people in the field right now, the Republican field, and no one's appealing to Democrats. Like there's not one Republican today that could go and win a general election, especially given the whole abortion thing and how we address Dobbs, how we address history of this nation. Regardless of how Republicans feel about it, you still need Black voters, you still need Hispanics. The GOP is not doing outreach and spending money on those groups that are needed to flip seats. And now moving forward, you're going to need Blacks and you're going to need Hispanics because these places are going blue. Then you have college age people that are blue and they're not going back. They're not going red.
This is Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy and you are welcome. You know the drill. Please subscribe, rate, comment, share, reach out, tell your friends, send smoke signals, whatever. We love your feedback and we want to hear from you. If you like our work and want to support us, the best way to do that is join PHETASY.com. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes content, outtakes, discounts on merch, and the ability to submit questions for some of our upcoming guests. Support your favorite scrappy little internet heroes at PHETASY.com. Okay. I'm with Tamika Hamilton, everybody. Welcome to Walk-Ins Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Bridget. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I've been really meaning to talk to you for quite some time. You were running for, well, tell us, what were you running for exactly? And when was this that you were running?
So yeah, I ran for Congress in 2020 and 2022 with no, political background. And I'm in the military and I have been for the past 20 years. I've been in the Air Force stationed here at Travis. And then my husband's a police officer. And like everybody, we're like, what the hell is happening in California? We need to get involved. And so I started on this, I call it a journey because it hasn't ended yet, even though I'm no longer a candidate. But we made a lot of strides here in California and the Northern California region where I ran because it's a 21% registered Republican district. And I got 46% of the vote.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was something that people just didn't think was possible.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've been trying to show people is that while California has a lot of problems, there is still hope. And you just got to work it.
Yeah. I just don't think, well, I can just only speak for myself. I have no idea where you would even begin. Just from the nuts and bolts aspect of things, like what do you do? How do you enter a race? People will say, oh, you need to get involved in local politics or you need to get involved and you can try and run. You were running to be in the House of Representatives. Is that correct?
Yes.
So obviously. So I wouldn't even know, how to start. So did you have to raise money first? Did you have to, tell us how your journey began.
So it started at a kitchen table with friends, and we were just talking about all the issues and, thinking, okay, again, like you said, where do we start? And I started looking for Republican groups. Both parties have their local representation. So for the Republican Party, it's the Republican Party, GOP, or Central Committee. And then for the Democrats, it's something similar. I don't know if it's called Central Committee, but that's what the Republicans call it. And so I just started making phone calls to them nonstop because, again, these are volunteer positions when you're having a local party. And so you have to call them and you have to find out when the next meetings are so you can get acquainted with them. I did not know any of this until I actually just started Googling. Yeah. So, there are people that would like you to already be in politics and be in local politics. But I think that those are purity tests. I think those are barriers that people put up so that people don't run and don't try to go further, especially when something's on their heart. And and I dealt with that because, again, I've never been in politics before. But, the first thing I always tell people is that I started going to the central committees. They can be really jarring when you first walk in the door because, like I never, and first I'm a Black woman. So they're like, what is she doing here? And then,
I was going to say, is it jarring because it's all white people?
yes, it's jarring because it's all white people. It's old white people, but I love my old white people.
Yeah, of course.
Right. But yeah, it is all white people. And then they were like to me, there's like, what's happening here? They didn't even know what I was doing. They're just like, what's happening? Because it's a unique situation. Somebody wanted to run for Congress, they're Republican and Black. Like, what the heck is happening here? But and again,
they're like, I'm sorry, the BLM chapter is down the street.
Right. This is before BLM, right? So they're just like, you need to bring more Black people in here. And I'm just like, that's first of all,
that's not my job.
Right. And then what's so funny is that they are the Central Committee here. They're right in the middle of the hood. And I'm like, what have y'all been doing? So that's something that I will never forget. I walk in the door and they're like, what are you doing?
You're like, you guys are in the wrong place, actually, not me.
I know. And I brought my whole family there. I had just had my baby at the time. So I have 5 kids and I just had my, was it fourth? Yeah, fourth. And I was just like, okay, people. And then they're like, oh, well, you don't have enough money. You don't have any money. I started with $100, but but the story gets good. So then you start.
It's already good. Yeah. By the way.
But they're like, you're not going to be able to run and you're not going to be able to do it. And I was like, okay, well, you never see me work, but okay, well, that's fine. And so what I started to do was make connections with people within the party. I started having meetings. I started to build a team. And so when you're running for office, you have to build a team, which is a consultant. If you're lucky enough to have a campaign manager, sometimes that consultant can be all those things. I was fortunate that I had people that really believed in me. And so I had a lot of the bells and whistles that a lot of people don't when they first start out. You have to have a fundraiser. So you're correct. You have to raise money. But I started raising money even before I had a consultant because I found out that I needed a treasurer because I couldn't do any of this and be a candidate without raising money. And so I had a treasurer and I was just talking about the issues online. And before I got a team, I raised about 40 grand by myself. And that's just me just talking.
Wow.
And so what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to talk about the issues and what's happening. And this is in 2020 where everything is like totally divided. People try to say California's going to hell in a handbasket. But no, like people are like, okay, we got to do this. And I always tell people, if the country is supporting a candidate in California, that means people care about California. It's not, So, and I really appreciate you trying to do the nuts and bolts of it because so many people don't know like that it's not just being on social media. You have to have people in place to be able to like make sure that you have emails going out. You have to have yard signs, which don't work, but it makes people feel good, especially the older folks. You have to have literature. You have to have people walk for you. You have to have volunteers. And guess what? The party does nothing. I shouldn't say it like that. They don't give you a campaign. They don't give you an office. They can help you. But again, 90% of the people that you see on TV, they're volunteers.
Right.
With the exception of the chair of the party. She's the only one that gets paid with an addition to like data folks and stuff like that. But there's the core of any organization, especially politics, is a lot of volunteers. And so that's why I always encourage people to get involved and to do more because they're always thinking like, oh, well, they could take care of it because they're getting paid for it. I'm like, actually, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have to do this before you filed? Like, what order does things? Because I know you were mentioning too, there are filing deadlines coming up now for people. And I, again, wouldn't know the first thing about this. So do you have to have money before you file? Do you file? What order did you do things?
So everything with me has been backwards, and which is going to be for a lot of working class people, unless you want to put your own money into it. We're on one income. My husband's a cop. I had just left active duty and reservist. And so I was like, okay, I didn't even think to put my own money into it, honestly, because I just knew that something was going to happen and everything was going to work out for me. But you asked an excellent question, because a lot of people don't know about the filing period. So for California, I can't speak to other states, but for California, it's September 14th is when the filing period opens. And then you have a certain amount of days to get signatures, which is roughly a month to get signatures. So the California Secretary of State website has not updated everything for this current election coming up. So you'll see you'll see the handbook that says a lot of 2022, 23 information, but the dates for the March 5th primary is updated, but not everything else. So
this is for the 2024 election.
yes, for the 2024.
And
yeah.
When is the primary? March 5th, you said?
Yes, March 5th.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of time. So if people in general that are watching that want to run here in California, they have to get their foot in the gas, sign up. I mean, go to your local voter registrar's office, and go and sign up, get your papers. Again, I love you, Bridget, for asking this question, because a lot of people are just like, what do you mean? Like, I have to go to this office. You have to go get signatures if you don't want to pay for your filing fees. And for every
okay.
Yeah,
so sorry, how much is the filing fee?
That's another great question. It's always dependent upon your district. So it's always dependent upon your district. And the other thing that's really interesting in California, and again, I can't speak to other states, is that you have to pay for every language. So you get your
wow.
Yeah, so because there's two parts to it. So you get your signatures. And some people opt to just pay the $1,000 or whatever it is. I'm not doing that. I'm going to get my signatures. Plus, it gives me like that, like, okay, it starts getting me in like that mode of like campaigning again, right? So I go get my signatures. You talk to people that are registered voters in the district, and then you get them to sign. I always go over, because you get several seats, and I always go over for signatures, because somebody could come back. They could come back after they verified them and said, oh my gosh, this person's not a voter. They lied to you. So,
right.
But this helps with the cost. Then the other part of it is that sometimes the first time voters are going to meet a candidate is through their ballot statement. And I kid you not, so many people can't afford a ballot statement, which again is a cost of depending on your district. When I had to pay for my ballot statement in 2020, I had 8 counties. I paid close to $20,000 for a ballot statement.
What's a ballot statement?
So basically, a ballot statement is just like saying who you are, what you believe in, and that goes in the voter guide and goes to all of the registered voters in the district. And
okay, right. Yeah. So it's a little like pamphlet you get that has gotcha.
All the candidates, from presidential down to local school board. If they pay for it, then they'll be in the book. But I've had people
that costs $20,000.
Yes,
that is insane. This is like why normal people can't run for politics.
Yes, it is. And I raised all of that money with support, from the people. There was no like RNC, none of that. It's literally it's me, the person, the candidate doing it. And this is why I get so upset when the leadership doesn't talk about the process, because they'll just tell people, oh, go and run. And then it gets shocked. They're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that? Yeah. So, and then it's $20,000. But the part that really was frustrating is that not only was it $20,000, but it's that expensive because you have to pay for every language separately. So you pay for English separately, Spanish, and then there's some areas where Punjab was, another group that needed representation as far as language was concerned. So it's like, I'm not going to not get it, and then that's not offered in every area because the population might not be as large,
Right.
So you're paying all these languages plus, making sure that everyone's represented. You want to make sure you touch as many people as possible. And there were times,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would add to that is the people get upset with me because they're like, you didn't get Spanish here. I was like, I didn't have money. And they're like, oh, they're like, the guy I was running against, John Garamendi, they're like, he had Spanish. I was like, yeah, he has $3 million in the bank. And I did not, sorry. So there were some places I had to just leave off because I didn't have enough money. And this will be the case for a lot of other candidates.
So, yeah, unless you have like wealthy donors and you're like backed by billionaires like Gavin Newsom, it's very hard to keep a campaign going. It's so expensive. It's
Yeah.
so crazy to me. I know Kira Davis was talking about running for like a school board, and she was telling me how expensive it was. I was like, this is insane. This is like a local school board.
Yes, yes. Because then you have to pay for literature. And then you have to pay for yard signs. And look, I know, so we're live. Like, so many people will get so upset about yard signs. And the science, the data proves it doesn't move a needle. But it's so expensive. Like, just for 1,000 yard signs is like $5,000.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy.
And it doesn't move the needle, but why is it one of these things that still persists?
I think it persists because it's like almost like nostalgia for, like for the older folks. It's like, oh, like I say a yard sign, that means like, they're taking territory, they're working. It's a sign of work, in my opinion, from the boomer age. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I love the boomers. They're keeping politics alive if people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's people just like, oh my God. But Kira's right. It's so expensive. And I'm just thinking, like, even when you see emails, for example, when you see an email from a political or candidate, that is being paid for. The email has to be written. The graphics have to be designed, which also, that's a separate cost. And so when you unsubscribe to an email from a candidate, it's like a gut punch, because it's like, I had to pay for all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So so say that I'm just a total newbie. You should consult people on this, because I don't even know. That's the other thing, is there's no one to turn to, other than people like you who have done it. And I think you should start like a consulting agency and get paid to help people. But this is what these big kind of, I think, like the, Democratic Socialists of America do. They get people and they help them through all of this process, and they look and see where they get them all the cool graphics, and it's like a huge institution that will back these candidates and help them walk them through this. They just have to be kind of the face and like go knock on doors, I guess.
Yes. Oh my God, you're so right. And you see that from where you are, and you've never been a candidate. That's so
yeah. Well, I saw that too with like the squad, I feel like they were kind of all handpicked. They know exactly which districts are up. They know which ones are probably able to flip, if they can flip them. They just get the right personality in for the demographic. And it seems like it's like an institution that they had. There's no way these people just like popped out of existence. It's like the nice story that they all want to tell, but they had help. Like a lot of, there was institutional support there. And I feel like that is something that I hear a lot from. I follow a lot of actually Black conservatives on Twitter, and like Latin American conservatives and Hispanic conservatives. And they're all like, where is the freaking outreach from the Republican Party?
Yeah.
And the support.
Yeah.
Where they see an opportunity, and now I think Muslims probably feel the same way, where there are all these social conservatives who are saying, we would like to get involved in politics. We'd like probably to vote for a Republican candidate. And there just doesn't seem to be any outreach at all. Do you have theories about why that is, or support for people like yourself who want to run? Like, where's the equivalent of the people who made the squad?
It's the party itself, and you're exactly right. There's all this. The Republican Party at large does not corral around a candidate like how you described for the squad. And the squad, regardless of how we feel about them, they still had to bust their butts. They still had to get out there.
They did.
They still had to raise the money. They still had to make phone calls, which is like something we can get into after we break this down. But Republican Party, the mindset is like you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. They want you to almost die. I feel like sometimes before they help you, they like literally almost die. Whereas like to your point, I had a friend that was actually running for Congress in my old hometown in Maryland, and the woman that the Democrats are running, she was a mess, a mess. But you know what? They propped her up, gave her all the things, and she didn't win, but the point is that they made some noise, and she raised like I think like $1 million or so dollars, like just on just
Wow.
base alone. But the Democrats understand that they want they will find the working class people with a story. Republicans will come to help people with the story if they have the ability to win per the numbers. But if you look at my situation, for example, and there's a lot of situations like mine in California, it's like the numbers may not be in our favor, but if you look at the groundwork, if you look at the past races on the local level, you'll see that hold on, wait, there's something here because a Republican won this seat or that seat, or they have a Republican school board or a city council.
Right.
It's not just it's bigger than just they don't have the numbers from a congressional percentage, if that makes sense. And so that's where that's the kind of position I was sitting in because again, 21% registered Republican district, and I got 46% of the vote. I did not have enough money. That's what stopped me. And I just, at the end of the day, I believe in God. And so it's like, okay, if God wanted me to win, I would have won. But I also look at this as like a stepping stone into what is going to come afterwards. And because I haven't stopped, helping the community, being involved, I know that, the benefits are going to pay out later, but that's not everyone's situation. And people are going to be like, where's the support? And it really starts with the individual, and I always tell people it's like, if you have an idea, you have to run with it and get people to support that idea. Because there are stumbling blocks, they try to put up gates. There are a lot of people that would try to stop you, but if people are behind you, they can't stop you. They just can't. That's how people have social media followings, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a twofold thing. Yes, I would want the party to do more, but I've also seen where the party will get involved and destroy a race. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just, and it goes back to like I would love, like, remember when around 2020 and just like influencers were like so hot, and they would find a candidate, then they will blow that social media up, and then people would donate all that. Like that needs to come back, but for the right candidates. But that's how you start. That's how you start helping people to raise money and to get their name out there, along with the groundwork.
Yeah. I feel like it really does happen on the ground too, more than people realize. And so you decided you wanted to run. You then went to you went to the Republican committee?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
And got some information and help. And then you went to the voter register, your local voter registrar, and you filed?
Mm-hmm. I filed.
How many signatures do you need so that you can file? Is it different everywhere?
It's different everywhere. But I think at the time, I want to say like it was like 50. I have to go back
And how do you get those signatures? Just from friends and
I
family and
I
support?
just walk up to strangers and tell them what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Bridget, after all this, you're gonna be able to run for office. So I'm just so you got you like no, like
I'll look back someday and I'll be like, I blame this podcast I did with Tamika.
yeah, no,
It's all her fault.
I'm telling you, like you got it. Like I've sat down with people and they're like, you just went, girl, you got it. You're gonna run for office. I'll help you. We'll talk about it later. Yeah, so you do that. You get your signatures. If you're able to raise the money for your ballot statement, do that, and then you're off to the races. All of that is after you do all of that, you're like set in stone. You're going to be on the ballot. You get a certificate from the Secretary of State. Again, do not listen to these naysayers. The voter registrar's office is great. They have really nice people that work back there. They are limited in staffing, so don't go there being all crazy. But they're really good people. They'll call you if you made a mistake. They'll make sure they'll make sure that you have all the things that you need. You just got to make the payment, and then it's waiting till it's then you got to do the work. You got to make sure that you have volunteers. You got to make sure that You go to as many meetings as possible, go meet people where they are, knock on doors. But then this tricky part is like, how do you do that? And it's called a data consultant. Again, something that everybody needs. And that's like one of the things I was thinking about is like, people always wonder, like, how do you go knock on doors or who do you go talk to? And the most important person in your campaign besides a consultant is your data guy, because he's going to break down all the numbers, where you need to go, who do you need to talk to. And then California, we used to be able to have this system called PDI, where basically it's like on your phone, it's an app where you could, the data guy would import all the information for your voters there. You would go knock on a specific door, a specific house. Well, we had to go to another system because Republicans are we get the shaft from Democrats. They decided to take that away from us. The company only wanted to work with Democrats. And now we're working with another organization, another business called Campaign Sidekick. It's a little bit better, but I mean, it's okay, but it's not as good as PDI. I guess.
Wait, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So this company just said they wouldn't work with Republicans anymore?
Yeah, it's like, forget it. We're not working with Republicans anymore. And the system is superior.
How is that even allowed?
It's a private company. They can do what they want.
I don't know, though. They can just that's like a bake the cake issue, though. It's like they can just, that seems discriminatory to me.
We cannot spend any more money fighting lawsuits. We can't. No, I hear what you're saying, but they did. You look up PDI, look up what they said for California, and I'm telling you, like, it's crazy.
I'm looking into I'm going to look into this because this seems wrong. But I guess
it is wrong, but that's the situation we're in. So we do have another system that we use, another app. It's called Campaign Sidekick with this company. And basically you look at the houses are imported for you. Everything's there. You just go walk to that house, go knock on the door. It's so simple. And that's what we need volunteers for. That's what we need people to do, because if you don't, then it's up to the candidate and then, that small group. But this is where Democrats do so well. They will get the low-hanging fruit. They can ballot harvest off of this. And because we still look at ballot harvesting as super taboo, we're not taking advantage of the same things that the Democrats take advantage of. And so that's why I started my PAC. And I was just like, look, we got to get this low-hanging fruit like the Democrats do. I lost my race by 29,000 votes and 39,000 Republicans stayed home. So,
wow.
Yeah. And because, it's just, again, trying to.
Why?
Oh, so many things. I mean, the party's divided. You know that. The base is the base.
Yeah.
The base, we used to be able to identify the base, but truth be told, the base doesn't exist anymore. It's so fractured all over the place. And
what is ballot harvesting exactly?
So basically, what ballot harvesting is that you're going to go get voters that essentially aren't high propensity voters, like people that vote regularly. And you're going to go get their ballot. Like the data consultants can pull who hasn't turned in a ballot or not. And so say you didn't turn in your ballot, I could come to your house because my data guy identified it. And I'm like, Bridget, give me your ballot, fill it out. I'm going to say it nicer, but I'm just saying, fill it out and let me have it. And then you're like, I forgot all about it. It's sitting right here. And Democrats make relationships far in advance. Then they go pick up those ballots when it comes time for the ballots to drop. Like, for instance, ballot's going to drop in February because of races in March. Once that happens, it's over. Game is over. Once February comes, like, it's over for a lot of campaigns. Not in a negative way, but just like you just got to wait to see the ballots coming back and then actual election day. But election day, only a small percentage of people go and vote at the center, at the voting center.
Because there's mail-in voting or whatever.
And we're not going to get rid of
it. So states where that's, because that's not allowed in every state, is it? Is it so states where that isn't a thing is ballot harvesting just isn't a thing. Ballot harvesting sounds wrong. Like the term sounds like something that is not supposed to be legal. I've never really I mean, maybe it is okay. Like I can see how there would maybe be some room for shenanigans there, I guess, but I do feel like if one party is allowed to do this, the other party should be doing it too. You know, like everybody should be ballot. This is like when it's the other, when your team is doing it, it's redistricting, and when the other team is doing it, it's gerrymandering.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like there needs to be another term for ballot harvesting when your team is doing it. Like, we're just helping the disabled vote.
We're just helping grandmas. Like, no, like,
helping grandmas.
You know, the other thing is and then this is going to sound really controversial, but this is where I say Democrats care more about our country and voting than we do, because we'll sit back when we have these laws in place that say, "Oh, okay." Now, I'm with you. Like, it's okay. At the end of the day, it seems wrong. But is it really wrong, or is it that the Republicans just know that they don't have the bodies or the energy to compete with Democrats, and they want to make it illegal?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's like, no, it's like, you just don't have the youth. You can't get.
You're just lazy.
You're just lazy.
You're
just lazy. I'm like, this is a competition. Like, I would be like, when I talk to my supporters, I'm like, get your kids out there. Because when you have this app, for example, and you have the data, you're going to these houses, make it a game. You know, it's like, who's get the most ballots, and then in your group, because I, as a candidate, can't give you something for collecting X amount of ballots, but you guys can make it a game within yourselves. Like, come on, like, knock it out. But the Republicans do not volunteer and do not work as hard as Democrats. I've said it a million times. I know someone's going to try to ratio me. I don't care. They do. They do.
Yeah. You lived it.
Yeah. And I've put 150,000 miles on my car, on 2 cars. Okay. Going around these districts, and I've seen it. They just hustle. They'll write the letters. When I go to these Republican groups, God bless them, but they just want to have their dinners and chit chat and go home. Yeah, they're not hustling.
Yeah, it's ironic that the pull yourself up by the bootstrap party is really not known for their hustling.
I know. That's why we need people like you, Bridget. Come over. Come on.
I mean, it seems like politics just seems so, it makes me cynical just thinking about it. I think just all the shaking hands and kissing babies that goes into it. And sometimes it seems like it would be fun. Like, Andrew Yang made it look like it was kind of fun. He got a lot of energy and still didn't, barely cracked a percentage. It's like, even someone with that much earned media and enthusiasm and optimism, it's still just like barely scratches like a percentage or two. It's just so, it's so wild. And then I think too about, the things, I think you say a lot of things people don't want to hear about their own party, from your own personal experience on the ground. Like, where's the support for people like yourself, working class people who want to run?
Yeah.
And where is the, like, get up and get out there and knock on doors and get buses of people and go, when you're running to be a representative, how much space is that? Like, how many, you said it's districts?
Yes.
Is it a certain number? Is every seat a certain number of districts? Is that how that works? I feel like I need to go back to like Schoolhouse Rock.
No, because they didn't teach us this in school. So you have to learn by Google and everything else. No, and Wikipedia, right? No, it's a congressional. So a congressional district is broken down, like you said, gerrymandering. that's how the Democrats do, but in California. So I'll take your what you said earlier on that one, but. Basically, it's carved out, and it's done every 10 years for Congress, every year, every 10 years, excuse me. And it's just
when they do the census, is that what it's based on?
Right, around the census. And so it's around 700,000 people. That's how they chop it up. And then when you get down to the local level, it's still districts, but it's smaller, right? So supervisor district, I think that's how they go off of for the regular, like the other seats. They use the supervisor district. I'm not 100% because I've never ran on the local level, but yeah, it's just cut up, based on the population.
So in your seat represented 8 districts. that you were running
Yes, so in
for?
2020 was 8, and then they redistrict, right? So I did 2020, then they made a decision they did the redistricting, and then they didn't let us know the decision until kind of like, oh my gosh, like 8 months until the next general election for 2022. So I had to run
Wow.
in a whole new district, and it was one county because it was Sacramento County. But because I had won West Sacramento in 2020, we just decided to plant roots there and run there. And then a lot of people that were on my campaign were either elected or had been elected in that area. So it was, a really good fit for me. Um, yeah.
Good.
And then again, so basically a lot of those people, it was the first time meeting me, and we got 46% of the vote again. So yeah,
Wow.
so basically we have like 8 months to run. Um,
Are you going to run again?
Not this cycle, but I will
Okay.
be running in the future, but not this cycle. Not I was like
Yeah.
running for like 4 years, and
Yeah.
it just I hope that and this is like reason why I hope people start volunteering so they can see a peek behind the curtain and see what it does to people and to families and good and bad, like it's a lot of time away from your family. You're not getting paid
Mm-hmm.
for this. I didn't get paid for this. One of the biggest criticisms I got from Republicans is babysitting. I'm just like, I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh, like you guys want families, you want the Camelot story. And as soon as see the peek behind the curtain, you're like, oh, you have to get a babysitter? You're like, what did you think was happening? It's like they're
Yeah.
they're so out of touch. And that's why I keep telling people like, you don't have to run in order to have an impact. You could help a candidate with childcare, or you could help send meals to them. Because I was running all day, mind you, being on the phone. I had to like raise a lot of my money on the phone, 30 hours a week on the phone. And then they were arguing about that. They were like, I had news articles written about babysitting. It's crazy. But you had to be on the phone. You had to talk to donors, and then having
Mm-hmm.
to cook dinner, for my husband who lives an hour
Yeah.
away, and still be a mom, and not wanting and not wanting to miss those moments, you right? And I had 2 babies within those campaigns. But it's like the that support and that backup outside of my team really wasn't there like it should have been.
What was the really driving factor that got motivated you to get involved in politics and to do this when you had babies and you had, so much on your plate already? 4 kids is a lot, just period. Like I have one and I'm working and I'm barely managing,
Yeah.
and I have my husband home helping me right now.
That's wonderful. I just
Yeah.
I so
But I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise.
Right, like I wouldn't be able to do it without my husband and then our little village of people that help. But I'll tell you this story. This lady, because it's about people, and it's always been about people. People are my business. I've been doing it for 20 years in the Air Force, and people are like, we're not represented. That's not just a Republican thing. That's a everybody thing. They're like, what is happening? Like, what's happening to our country? Why can't I afford the basics anymore? We have military members, Bridget, that are going to food banks in my district.
That's crazy.
Active duty members going to food banks
That's nuts.
every Wednesday. It is
It's
sorry.
embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. And sorry, I don't want to cry, but it's like
No, it's fine. They deserve so much better than that.
yeah, they do. And it's just like, okay, so that coupled with all the issues that are happening in our state with education, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is a people issue. Kids are not being taught. And I don't agree with like abolish everything. It's like reform people, that we can reform how our children are being taught. We can reform police reform. We can do all those things if we come together. We can't just get tired and say to hell with it, because you know what? There's going to be some kid that's getting, going through something, doesn't have anybody to talk to, and then that could have been somebody we helped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I look at
Yeah.
it. You can't save everybody, but I didn't want to leave this earth not doing what was in my heart to do. And that's why I started running. And this is why I always encourage other women to run, because there's so many women, there's so many families that have the answers and are willing to work with people and not about the drama. And that's why I encourage so many people to get involved, because it's like, but if they get intimidated because they see what politics is.
Yeah.
And when you look and you really when you look at it, and this is why I tell people all the time, it's like the good people end up leaving because they get tired and they can't see on the other side, because they're like, you know what, I'll just rather just deal with my own family and take care of my own family. But guess what?
Yeah.
Your children, you're not going to be here forever. You and I are not going to be here forever. And so what are we giving our kids? What are we giving them? And then what are we teaching them by just saying we're just going to stay in our little freaking bubble? It's because now look at the situation we're dealing with today. You got, like we talked about SB 14. It is so, like, I can't even conceive how we are trying to affirm or make parents affirm, probably good parents affirm this gender stuff, this trans stuff,
Yeah.
and potentially taking them away from their families.
So just for people who are listening who don't know what SB 14 is, it is.
Yeah. So Lori Wilson, our assemblywoman here in California, who has a trans child, says that she wants to advocate for children to be affirmed in case of a divorce proceeding by the parents. And it's caused a lot of uproar here in California on both sides. And people all the way, you saw the hearing, like people from San Francisco that are as liberal, blue haired as can be, was like, no, this is not okay. This is a hot issue. And she wanted to put it into law. So right now they're in recess. They don't come back until September. And even then, they're going to go on another recess until January right after that. So it's not.
Did these people work? Like they're always
on recess. Yeah.
On recess. It was like last night I was looking at, I guess like I was laughing because they're like, well, Congress passed the like National Blueberry Day and then they took a 5-week recess. I'm like, what the fuck? Does like any of these people work?
Oh my God. I think and then today I think they're talking about UFOs. I got to go back and double check. But it's like, yes, they talk about. Again, this is why. So good people need to get involved. If you're watching and if you need help and you want to get involved, please send me a DM. Tamika Hamilton, Bridget will have all my stuff up. But talk to me. Let's figure this out, because September is around the corner. And even if you live in another state, please hit me up. Like, I know people in other states that can help you. But again, good people need to stay in, because bad people end up elevating when the good people leave. Like, that's literally how a lot of these people that you see are still around, because good people are like, you know, I just want to take care of my family. But I will tell the short story is that there's a lady that's here that's helped me in the past. She was part of the Tea Party movement, like the original Tea Party movement, 78 years old. And I'll never forget talking to her one day because I was tired. And she was like, Tamika, I wish I had done more. And she was like crying to me. She just like fought cancer twice, raised her children in her little small town. And she was just like, if I had done more, you know, maybe things would be different, because now her little town is being overrun by policies that she doesn't like. But that kind of energy keeps me going, because I know so many people that wish they had stayed, and now they're older. And obviously, just like anything, it's better to do it while you're young, because once you're older, it's like, it's so hard. It's so hard now. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. My husband and I always joke, like, we had one child very late as kind of a surprise, and I had her at 42. Oh, wow. And he's 4 years older than me, and we're always like, this is a young person's game. Like,
you know,
kids, she's just like running around, and we're like, we're exhausted. She's just so much energy. I'm like, this is like, I have family members who had kids in their 20s. I'm like, this is the way to go, man. When you've got energy.
It's, you know what? I look at it as like God said, Bridget, this is going to keep you young.
It does keep you young.
People like think that that's like that's just a nice thing to say. No, you're going to keep walking around. You're going to be running around. Your mind's going to be like racing, thinking about all the things you need to do for your baby. And, usually, it's like when you get older, you're like, okay, well, I get to rest. No, not you, Bridget.
she's forced me to do things too that like I don't know that I would have done or had to do. For instance, moving to Texas because I wanted to just be able to give her a better life and put her in a better position. And I can't afford to do that in California. And also just some of the, I felt like it really is I felt powerless and I'm glad you don't. You're more optimistic about things in California than I feel like I was because my husband and I were like, even if we moved to a town that was more purple, even not just blue, even if we moved to a purple or red town, it's still like the governance overall in the state is like blue all the way down, top to bottom, no balance. And I think Kevin Kiley's been really effective. I liked him a lot when he was, state representative, and now that he's representing us on the national level, or not me anymore, but you guys. And
well, he still represents you.
I do have to yeah, no, I do have to say it's been like, I feel like viewing, I saw a bunch of things coming out of California just last night, and I was like, this must be how people view America from like outside the United States. The way I was feeling, where I was like, wow, that's crazy. Anyways, I don't have to, my friends who are living with it, I know that stress and anxiety and the fear, and they're in Oakland, and it just like seems like such a shit show. And I was like, get out. And this is what my husband and I used to look at each other and say, this is America. We don't have to live like this. We can take our feet and move. And we had family there, and it was not an easy decision, but I can say that a level of stress that I was living under almost constantly in Los Angeles evaporated, and it's like I can breathe in a way that I wasn't breathing. And that alone is better for my kid. Just growing up with someone who isn't like looking over my shoulder every time we went for a walk or went to the park.
I hear you. And this is where I always tell people, you got to be led. You were led to leave. And for me, every time I've even contemplated like, we should just go. It's like my heart does not have peace. And, and I was just before I got on with you, I was like, not fussing, but having a rant with one of my friends. I'm just like, people don't understand, like, if we don't get this right now, like with everything that's happening for 2024, we're going to just walk into a Gavin Newsom presidency.
I know. I feel that way.
Yeah.
That would be my luck, by the way, is to like, I was like, I will to leave and then Gavin Newsom becomes president. I'm like, I think that will be the thing that fully radicalizes me to like becoming to get involved. I'll be knocking on doors for whoever is running, except then I'm like, but what if it's Trump?
He's gonna turn it ghetto, and he's like if we thought we had it rough now, I mean, it's bad when 50 Cent's like, LA's gone. And I was like, oh my gosh, like LA's gone. I was like, well, I mean, we've been saying, the little people have been saying that it's been gone, but and just like, okay, we have somebody running against the DA in LA. Do you think it makes like, so while I don't have a big following, the ground is different, but I always tell people like, we should be giving the person running against the DA that's destroyed LA the same energy as we give these presidents. Like, we should be pumping him up. His name is John McKinney. Like, we should be donating to him. We should be like going to bat for him. He actually used to work for Gascon. Is that how you say his name? Oh gosh. Yeah, and he was just like, well, not like not work for him. I guess. No,
I know what you mean. Like, had to work with them in law context or whatever.
Yeah, and then now he's running against it because it's like everything's gone crazy. But we're now pumping these people up, and then somebody's saying, well, Tamika, you should do it. It's like, come on, I can't do everything. I got to stick to a skill set here. Otherwise, I'm going to be all over the place. But
what did you do in the Air Force?
So I'm still in. Because I'm still in. So I did 14 years active, and then the past 6 years I've been a reservist. So my job is logistics. Right now I'm training people, the younger folks. Because reservists is just a little bit slower than active duty, because it's 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks out of the year, but I'm still doing my same job, making sure we keep the planes in the air, basically. But it's been really great to be on the other side of it versus active duty, because again, it took a lot of stress off of me. Just because I didn't want to deploy again. I'm just being real. I didn't want to deploy again. And
yeah, I would imagine that sucks.
It does. Like watching your kids from a computer in your dusty room, and you're just like, what am I doing right now? And again, this is not to discourage anybody, but it just wasn't for me anymore. And I had to follow, like you did, go to Dallas. It's like and I kept getting that pull to leave. And I was like, good. And someone would say, oh my God, like you lost all this money, almost retirement. It's like, I have so much peace, because I know people that have done their 20 years or whatever, and girl, they die like a year later. It like legit die. And I'm like, it's not about a paycheck. It's not about a pension. It's about my kids' future. So anyway, long-winded. But yeah, I did what was best for me.
What inspired you to go into the military, or what did you come from a family that was military?
Yeah, my grandfathers were Purple Heart recipients. They were pillars in the community. Everybody knows my grandparents. My grandparents raised me. Like my mom and my dad were Rolling Stones, respectfully.
It's very polite.
Very polite. My grandmother Geraldine took me home from the hospital, and I was very privileged to have both sets of my grandparents in my life. And, they raised me. That's why I'm like a little old lady at 39 now. Yeah. So they just, like, my grandfather had Lou Gehrig's disease towards his end of his life. And again, attest to his hard work and dedication. Like, girl, his arms, and I was just looking at a picture of him the other day. He could, because Lou Gehrig's disease, touches everyone differently. And his arms, he couldn't move his arms at a certain point. And it happened very dramatically. It was maybe roughly 2 years, and then he passed away. But even until then, he was still helping people, helping other veterans. And I was just looking at pictures of him where you could clearly see that he couldn't move his arms, but he was he used to host car shows and put them on, and he was still making sure everybody knew what to do, telling everybody what to do. And I'm just like, he was strong until the end, and
they
so
were a different generation.
Girl. So I just draw strength from them, because they didn't stop until they were ready to go home to Jesus. And so that's where I'm at on a lot of things, on everything, basically.
So did you go right from high school into the military?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was getting the heck up out of there.
Yeah. Did they give you an education too when you're in the military, or do you get out and then go to college, or how did you do it?
So I did a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because some people, they're amazing and could do school and work at the same time and knock it all out and get their degree while they're in. I'm not that person. I am slow. And then I had my babies, and my husband's a cop, is like, yeah, no, I need to sit in the classroom. I'm still that person. I need to sit in the classroom. I need to hear the teacher. I need to ask questions, not send emails. I've tried the online thing, but yeah, you can earn time towards getting your education benefits. I don't know what it is now, because I've gotten mine and I'm good to go, but I know that the rules have changed for newer folks. But and then I've done school since I've been out on the reserve, as a reservist. But I took some time off to run for office because I couldn't do all the things. So I'm actually going to go back in the spring and finish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then what does your husband think being a cop? How has that been for him and you?
My husband, so one of the things as a wife is that I always encourage my husband. He knew he was supposed to be a cop. He used to be in the Navy. And then when he got out, he was waiting in DC, because we started out in DC. I met him in DC. And and so he was working for the DOD after he left the Navy, waiting to get into the first training school for police officers. And they had a 3-year hiring freeze. And I was just with him all the 1,000%, and still am. But I will tell you that in 2020, when the riots happened and the energy that was happening here in California, there were moments where I almost was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because it's different. I mean, mind you, he could lose his life today.
Yeah.
But that was 2020 did something to everybody, I think. 2019, 2020 did something to all of us, and it changed all of us. And so, and there's so many things that he deals with, because he's also at SRO. He got Officer of the Year last year. So he's at these schools and meeting these kids, and they even gave him Hero of the Year at his school. And so these kids are looking for, that's why I like get pissed off when Republicans talk crap about was it Gen X or whatever, Gen Z, whatever. And I'm just like, Gen Z, because I'm like, these kids are looking for mentorship. They're looking for support. And they found it in a police officer and gave him an award. We're out of touch. Like it's about making relationships.
Hmm.
So he loves it because he loves kids. We're both, coming from not having parents. Like, our grandparents did what they could, but when you don't have parents, you don't want to see what happened to you happen to other kids. And so we're always the house kids want to stay longer. Can we stay? Can we like I'm like, no, you can't stay. You have parents too. But you can come back, so we just want to be a safe place for kids. And so, outside of 2020, I like, and I didn't tell him that. Like, I actually just recently told him about 2020, kind of like freaked me out. But when your husband is like going on deployments and riot gear, that's not the time to be like, maybe you shouldn't do this.
Not many people have that kind of awareness, but yes, that's
Yeah.
probably the wrong time.
Yes, I know you have to be gone for 20 hours in Oakland where they're bombing and always
And spitting on you.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that got spit on, and I'm like, yeah, no, you got to have some emotional intelligence. But that was the only time where I was like, oh no, Jesus, we got to have a talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, this is where I feel like liberals are really out of touch, that they're kind of condoning and encouraging this, where it's like, who do you think is exactly getting these jobs? It's working class people. Just it's crazy to me that there's this kind of tacit permission to be so disrespectful. And yeah, like you said, can there be reform? Of course. Are there issues? Yes. But does festering resentment and violence allowed, kind of, you're just kind of encouraging this on one side? It seems like it's not going to help the problem.
No. And then when you have, one of the things that always baffled me, and again, it's like, emotions should not lead us, especially when we're trying to make decisions. It just shouldn't. We need to be thinking. But like when people get up, like he's dealing with people that are upset with him for something a cop did in Washington, D.C. And I'm like, let's think about this here. My husband is not a D.C. cop. He wasn't the guy, but somehow he's responsible. You're going to miss me on that. Like, no, he's not. And my husband's like, again, he's not every cop. And, I know that people have had bad run-ins and 2 years, like you said, everything isn't perfect. But if people actually got involved, we could make some changes, because who the police department has to answer to: city council, to the mayor. That's where it goes. That's where it starts. Yeah. Just like the teachers unions. If parents are mad about what's happening in their school board, there's unions that are pushing this and they're getting funded by Democrats. So you need to go to them. It's really simple. I don't know. I just don't know how we got on this path of like, I don't know. It's just crazy.
I think this is why but this is like your logistics brain. I don't think everyone has that kind of executive functioning, where they can look at things logistically. So that's not, most people, I mean, all of us are guilty of reacting to things emotionally, but to be able to step back and look at something and break it down into very simple parts and figure out how those parts are all moving and interacting, that is not like, that's a skill set that not everybody has. And I actually feel like it seems, because of the lack of focus people have and the diminishing attention span, that erodes at that ability too. You need to be able to focus to even tackle a problem. So how can you tackle a problem if you're just like high and online all day?
I don't know how people do it, and it's just, I didn't have social media until I started running. So I think I'm on year 5 of social media, and I'm pretty boring online because I'm like, this is dumb, but I know, but I know I have to do it sometimes. And I'm better at talking to you, like to people, doing interviews. I don't do very well, like on tweeting. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I'm just not a person that tweets well. I don't know. Cause I'm like, can we just like be grown-ups here? I mean, but
Yeah, it would be hard to be on Twitter and be a well-adjusted adult.
I know, like my husband, he didn't have it either. And so like, well, you remember MySpace. So he had
Yeah, of
MySpace, but
course.
it was like all scripture. And I was just, so that was like the extent of like, his
Oh,
was like all like Jesus oriented. And then
I
he
love
had like
it.
Facebook like very briefly, and then he was like, "This is dumb," and so we haven't been on social media because it's like, what do we need to talk to? Like everybody in our life is in our life, but nothing against social media because it makes a difference. It's helpful. It's helped me, but I'm just not good. Like, oh, let's tweet this. Like, I am not that chick. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not good like you.
Yeah, I think too. I'm not great. I've lost. It's lost a lot of its
Yeah,
luster for me. Sometimes I feel like it's fun again, but there. It's like this friend of mine, Kat D. I saw a tweet right before we jumped on, and she was saying something about like the vibe shift happened, and a lot of the people didn't but there has been like a vibe shift. She's right. I don't know what it is, but everything feels kind of broken to me. Social media feels very boring. It might be over. We may have like lived through the social media thing, and now it's something different, but it does feel like
yeah.
there's been a vibe shift around
Oh,
it.
totally. That's like I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, remember when like the MAGA folks when they were online for real on Twitter, and they had like those
Yeah.
trains, and I was like, what the heck happened to those trains? What happened to those people? And they all got off because the former president, he was suspended indefinitely, and I was just like,
Well, he's allowed back on now.
right, but he's not. Like, I don't think he's going to come back. Like I keep holding out hope that he's going to come back because I don't know. Sometimes I think like it'll make a difference in the vibe, but
Hmm.
I don't think he's going to come back.
I think he's going to have to come back if he's running.
Well, I will have hope because you said that. Yeah.
I mean, if he's going to be the nominee, which it looks like he will be, and he's not in jail, which is questionable, from his like.
I'm not supposed to be
We live
laughing.
in the stupidest times
It's
of
so
all time, but if he's not
America's
in
ghetto.
jail and he's running,
Isn't it crazy to think like it's not funny, but it's like
no, it's
it's
hilarious.
like are we just that ghetto? Like is that like are we
Yes,
just that
we
ghetto? We're
are.
just that ghetto? Like, oh my God. Um yeah. So it's just like God, I don't
I went to South Africa for my honeymoon with my husband, and it was February of 2021, which, as you recall, is like a month after the insurrection. And every single one of our Uber drivers, like every person was like, what the hell is going on over there?
come get your people. And then they're probably like really asking you what's wrong because you're white. They're like, what's wrong with y'all? Like, what y'all get your people?
They're like, what? They would like, one Uber driver was like, did you have fun at the insurrection? I was like, very funny, sir.
I had a neighbor. She's like a grandma to me, and she got so mad at me after the insurrection. She's just like, what do you think about this? I was like, it's dumb. It's ghetto. Like this is
This is
this
ghetto.
is ghetto. And she was so mad at me. She stopped talking to me, and I was just like, all right, well, I guess there's that. It's oh my gosh.
Like, it says something when you're in South Africa, which is a developing country, that they're like, what the fuck is going on over there?
Why is that? I mean,
you guys are
the
ghetto.
fact that you went to South Africa and your dude, man, that's a story in itself. That needs to be in a book. Like, yeah, by the way, people, but see how much influence America has on the world. Like, we don't know what's going on I don't know what's going on in some random country, but y'all know what's going on in DC, and they probably saw
I mean, that was pretty hard to avoid.
They remember when and I just remember like the stealing the podium picture. And I was just,
It was so ridiculous.
I remember when, see, here's, okay, so here's the thing with when you go door to door and you have to talk about the insurrection, that's what people don't understand, why you got to be careful of like the stuff you like make a deal on. Because what's happening on social media is not what people are vibing with on the ground. And
Right.
a lot of these Democrats that want to vote for Republicans, they have a hard line on the insurrection. And so they will. And so I
Yeah.
remember like these people like, but they took,
Fair
they're
enough.
like, they took the podium when I'm at I was like, look, I didn't take the podium. I didn't.
Yeah.
And then they remember the podium and they remember the guy with the horns. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know those people. And they think you know those people. They think
The shaman.
yeah, the shaman. They think you know those people. That's why I always like, guys, like, can we just like get it together, stay on message, figure out what to say, get in a little huddle, and then just stay to it, stick to it. Because when you're going door to door, they're gonna try to pull you in to see where you're at.
That's so interesting. I never really even thought
Yeah.
about that, how this affects like candidates like yourself
Yeah.
who are going door to door.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I was talking. I had Christopher Rufo on yesterday, and this is what I was talking to him about is, you know, somebody like DeSantis who might be appealing to, let's say, disaffected liberal boomers, people who are independents, maybe people who feel politically homeless, but they feel like they need to push back against the left. And then DeSantis does something crazy or has like a video that comes out and that's nuts or whatever. But I'm like, can you understand how people like that might not want to, like how Trump would be a challenge for them? You know, it's not like, I was like, Republicans and conservatives aren't exactly making it easy for these people to go running into their arms either. So it's so, and I can't imagine as somebody who's running how challenging that would be to try and,
Yeah.
your down ticket of these insane people.
Yeah. And
I'm like, no one wants to run into the arms of freaking Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know?
Bridget, come with me everywhere. Come with me everywhere. This is I love you because I'm sorry, like I don't care if it's popular with a segment of people. It doesn't mean it's popular for all people. And like you said, I say a lot of unpopular things because I want people to start thinking, like, just like with DeSantis and the way he tried to kind of just skirt around the whole slavery thing with his whole education policy, whatever. And I was just like, he should have. So this is where I give Gavin Newsom credit. Gavin Newsom, even if you don't like him, he knows how to talk to people. He knows how to get in front of the camera if he doesn't like something and speak directly to the people. And I was like, DeSantis, and again, you don't have to agree with Gavin Newsom, but he has an emotional intelligence that supersedes what I think, you know, if we're talking DeSantis and Gavin, it's like, dude, like these are the people that are supposed to eventually run against each other. And DeSantis is not doing himself any favors he could take credit for CRT policies that his people do. But then when it comes to slavery and then how they like kind of had that misstep with how they worded it or how they say they worded it wrong, I was like, dude, like he said, oh, I had nothing to do with that. And I was like, no, that is not what you say.
Yeah.
And then basically threw his people under the bus when he should just got in front of it and then talked the issues and then it would be over. But he didn't. He said he had nothing to do with it. And it's like when a candidate, when a woman, when a family goes door to door, or that young kid goes door to door trying to get a vote for a candidate, they're going to be asked those questions. They're going to be asked those questions. They're not just knocking on the door and leaving. They're going to be like, sometimes they do, but you know, if you catch somebody at home, they're going to be drilled on, well, how do you feel? Like I got drilled on how you feel about the insurrection. Was it election fraud? I mean, those were the first questions that came out of Democrats.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so now it's going to be abortion. And then it's going to be, what do you think about slavery? And it's like, what? Like, hold up, wait. They're going to be hyper focused because they're getting the emails. It's in the media. And you and I both know that they're not going to look at the correction that his people put out. They're going to look at what he said, how he said it, and it did not go over well. And
the media lied about it, but then you have this whole spin that happens, but then Republicans and media pundits are, you're like, no, you don't have to defend, like, You don't need to defend that. You're not like, no one should be in a position of like, well, actually, slavery, just stop. Just, don't go to, like, it was a skilled labor job. Like, no, if you find yourself in that position, it's like defending, you don't, what's that tweet that always goes around? Like, you do not have to you do not have to hand it to Hitler. You do not have to hand it to Osama bin Laden. Like, you don't have to hand it to the people who gave blacksmiths some labor training during slavery.
Right. That's like, you know what? We know that you just like talking to a sex trafficking victim. It's like, you went through a lot, but you learned adversity. You learned how to be strong. You learned how to be strong. You know how to get through tough situations. Like,
yeah, I always hear this when people are talking about like their divorce or something, they're like, kids are resilient. It's like, oh yeah, but do we need to like put them through this?
Oh my gosh. If you want my blood to boil, do like that. Those are things that piss me off so much. It's like, no. You're supposed to be protecting innocence. Telling the truth and protecting innocence. And, frankly, the Republican Party has just done a really horrible job with connecting with the Black community as a whole. And they want to just act like they want to act as if, they don't need that vote. I mean, they act as if they don't need the vote because of how they just are almost like oblivious to like how to talk to Black Americans. It's almost like they're just still scared to say certain things.
I mean, I think too, then there's like all this rhetoric that then one of the things that bothers me about the messaging, first of all, they don't seem to realize how socially conservative much of Black America is. So do you know any Black people? Let's start there.
Bridget, first of all, they need to hire you because I know that, and I've been following you for a long time, and you actually I already knew that you follow Black blogs and creatives, and you understand what I'm saying. Whereas like when I saw like Christina Pushaw and then like the other guy Jeremy on DeSantis' team, like they put out like all this stuff, and I was like, you Black people do not follow you. Like, what are you even like? No one cares about your correction. Like, stop. And I'm just like, and I want to just win. You know what I mean? Like I don't have feelings I don't have like these personal feelings of like, oh, revenge and retribution. Like no, Trump's trying to run a 2016 campaign. Like, we don't know what kind of person he is as a president. We know. And then DeSantis is, he's not able to grasp, like, sadly, the base is broken. And a lot of people are staying at home in general. And if Trump doesn't win, or DeSantis not getting Trump's people, and then on top of that, like he's making like some things that he's making mistakes where he could have avoided them. And
they're like self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, and he's trying to. I wanted so badly for there to be some kind of Republican revival, but I just don't see it, and that's why I push so hard on a local level. Our congressional candidates, our state representatives, because that's what matters really at the end of the day. Those are the people that shut us down for real when we had COVID. And so they have a lot more sway and power in our everyday lives than the president. And so,
or people who aren't even elected, like that lady who looks like she just woke up from the crypt, the Barbara Ferrer or whatever in LA County.
Oh my God. And she gets paid so much money.
She is like more power than anyone, and we can't get rid of her.
We cannot get rid of her. And it's like, that's just, do you remember, oh my gosh, what could have happened is that if people were paying attention, do you remember when Eric Garcetti was going to be the House
Indian?
Yeah. But before that, he was going to get assigned to the HUD position. Do you remember that? And do you remember what happened?
Yeah.
The Black Lives Matter chapter went there and went to his house and protested for 30 days. And then Biden was like, yeah, never mind. We don't want those. That's when Black Lives Matter, before all the investigations, and we found out that they had like 50,000 houses. But that was like when Black Lives Matter was at its like peak, at their peak. And so they stopped Garcetti from getting the HUD, I think it's HUD director position. They were like, yeah, Biden's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And then they sent him to India. Well, and they don't know that Garcetti's family, which is like super rich. And
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, come on, people, y'all are not making the right moves here.
No, it's definitely it's interesting. It does feel like what you said, where you're just kind of going to walk right into a Gavin Newsom presidency. That's how it feels to me. The right feels so fractured. The left just kind of like they kind of just have to keep Biden in as long as possible until the very last minute when they can just be like, "Gotcha."
Yeah, and you know, and people get mad at me when I talk about Gavin Newsom becoming. That's never going to happen. It's like he's governor here.
He's running basically now. I mean, I had Stephen Miller, the Red Steez, the pundit, like not Stephen Miller who worked. So he came on and he was like, isn't it funny how they're just basically letting him run? You know, he's basically out campaigning and no one's stopping him from talking. No one on in the DNC isn't making him be quiet. Yeah. They're like tacitly allowing him to run.
Yeah.
And not doing anything about it. No one from the Biden administration is like, "Hey, chill out, bro." He's
like,
just he like went on a tour of America. You know, he's yeah. So I don't see why. I think that's a very very clearly something that could be a reality. Yeah. I don't.
Okay, so remember when Gavin Newsom, this is just like for the past week, right? He wanted to find the school in, I think, Temecula. $1.5 million for this. So, and he gets straight to camera and like, it's like, no, we're not going to do this. Sleeves. And Republicans are, he's so repulsive. He's just so terrible. I'm like, man, y'all are missing the point. He's fighting, right? He's fighting. Everyone sees who's fighting. And then not even a week later, this situation with the school board or with the school curriculum for DeSantis. And then DeSantis is like, I ain't had nothing to do with that. And then move along. Let's keep going. And when they saw that blow up in their face, I was like, you guys should have really done what Gavin Newsom did. Even if you don't agree with Gavin Newsom, he knows how to run PR. He knows how to get in front of things. And
yeah, he's been doing this for a long time. I mean, he's been destroying cities and states for a long time.
Right.
Tamika.
I know. And I'm like, no one's going to I was like, okay, you know, and no one's going to stop him. It's because, you know what, we want to infight. Republicans are fighting. I don't even, it's like, in the perfect story, it's like, okay, Trump, just be the kingmaker, raise your money to pay your legal fees on the side. You know, pay him like he's consulting for DeSantis. I don't know. But like, but now they're going back and forth, DeSantis and Trump. And I'm like, but this is not 2016 and DeSantis is not Ted Cruz. So DeSantis is not going to just be like, oh, hey, brother, we're cool. Like after you talk crap about me and said I was almost a pedophile, like we're not doing that. Like it's not going to happen. And he's going to go on, if say he doesn't win the primary, he's going to go on and be governor of Florida and walk away. I don't see him shaking Trump's hand and being chill with him. Like, I don't think people get that part. Like he doesn't need to be, he wants to be president, obviously, but at the end of the day, was at the height of his Navy career. He has a beautiful family and he's governor of Florida. You know what I mean? Like, it's not this thing where he has to come back and be like, and he's a good fundraiser. So it's like, I think that the Trump people bit off more than they can chew with the insults. So there's not going to be a coming together of bases to figure this thing out and work together to win 2024.
I don't think people should underestimate DeSantis either. Mm-mm. You know, he's like heavy. He was like working class at Harvard. You know, he's got a massive chip on his shoulder. He's got a lot to prove, but he seems. Yeah, if he could kind of get it together a little bit, because Trump won by winning independents. Like the Obama Trump voter is the most, many of these people exist. And that's the person that DeSantis needs to try and court. But he seems to be, I don't know if it's his campaign or what. Like he's trying to appease, I think for the primary, he's trying to appeal to MAGA because he's got to get MAGA to, and try and win the nomination. He has to appeal to MAGA, but I don't know how he's in a tough spot. I don't know how you do that without alienating all the people you need for the general.
I said this morning that the way the consultants always say is like, go first with try to get your base and then move back to the middle. But I don't, for me, I don't, and it's just, I'm not an expert, but just from what I see, I don't think that is the answer anymore. I think we have to go straight to the middle because there's too many people in the field right now, the Republican field, and no one's appealing to Democrats. Like there's not one Republican today that could go and win a general election. Uh, I mean, if you really look at it, are Democrats, especially given the whole abortion thing and how we address Dobbs, how we address the history of this nation, regardless of how Republicans feel about it, you still need Black voters, you still need Hispanics. The GOP is not out doing outreach to and spending money on those groups that are needed to flip seats. And now moving forward, you're going to need Blacks and you're going to need Hispanics because these places are going blue. And then you have then you have college age people that are blue and they're not going back. They're not going red. It's no, not yet.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, and so let's.
But Gen Z's big, and they're all about to they're all voting age now.
Yeah, and they don't feel like Republicans are giving them hope. Those are some of the very people that I invest a lot of time in, and Young and Free at my church, and they're like, we're not getting hope. No.
And
so
that's another really good point. It's like who has the fighting against something. We've become this country where everybody kind of defines themselves by what they're against. And I do think that Biden, because he's just a career politician and knows how to work that angle of like, he's not online, so he's not really paying attention, but therefore he's more in touch with just the average American. And his message was more hopeful than like the dark vision of America that I feel conservatives are presenting, where it's like, oh, everything's going to shit and it's all doom and gloom. And I think conservatives, the young conservatives, and this is another group that I'm really fascinated by, is like young conservatives who care about stewarding our environment. If you are somebody who's old school conservative and you're like, those quacks who believe in global warming, and you're a young person, you're like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, you can have issues with the science or whatever, but if you're not presenting an optimistic vision, people are going to tune you out. They're just not, it's not attractive. There's nothing attractive about conservatism right now at all.
Right. It's not. And it's yes. And that's why like people, so that goes into what I've been talking about with the DNC convention that's going to be coming up. Obama's going to be hosting it with Michelle, and they're going to give optimism. They're gonna show, and then they're gonna make us look like dummies because they're gonna play all the things that we've said over the past year, and then they're gonna have a word for it. Obama's gonna give some amazing speech. They're gonna rile up these volunteers, and we're not gonna be ready for it. And that's why I wanted to get people engaged now and get in practice, because we have the potential of losing the House. And people can say, oh, no one wants to vote for Biden, and they don't like him. They will vote for him, because if anyone could get Democrats out, it would be Trump. It's like they don't want,
and independents.
Because why? Because they don't want they will see January 6th all over again.
Yeah, or not even January 6th. It's like at a certain point, someone's character has to like come into. I don't know. I think you're accurate to point these things out, even though no one wants to hear them. People like the left is a mess. There's so many, and there's so many things that on a visceral level I want to fight against, because there is this talk about a cynical view of America, which is the view that's been presented to us by the left, is the most deeply cynical. And it just is not. It's a weird. They just know how to like turn on the hope when they need it. They're savvy.
They're so smart.
They're just savvy.
Look how Gavin Newsom turned that recall around. It's like the thing that I find interesting about Republicans, that either just watching it all crumble, or just even the consultants, it's like Gavin Newsom was underwater. We saw him losing. We saw him lash out. I saw interviews where he was slamming his hand on the table. I was like, oh, he's scared. I could go back and look at my old tweets. Like Gavin Newsom was scared. He was he was scared. He might not have said it, but you could tell there was there was something different. He did not expect his own Democrats to go to a Republican recall at the fairs and go sign a Republican recall. I was at some of those booths. Now, I didn't spearhead anything. I just went and volunteered when I had the time. But they were signing it, and he just did not expect that. But when Larry Elder came into the game, he focused squarely on him.
Yep.
And what did he do? Hit on abortion, Dianne Feinstein.
Yep.
Because what did Gavin Newsom say he was going to do? He was going to elect a black woman, appoint a black woman to that position. Abortion. For Democrats, Larry Elder has extreme abortion, ideas or thoughts or whatever. I don't remember all the things.
Well, he was MAGA too. It was like the best thing that happened to Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, and it's just, I wish that people understand that you got to win first, Bridget. Like you got to win first. And that doesn't mean you have to say something and have this long form about everything. It's like, what do people care about? They want to put food on the table, take kids to the park without getting mugged. They want
like a needle.
or a needle.
Yeah.
They want to be able to send their kids to a good school, and we have family schools, and they want peace. That's what people want. They want peace. And so I don't know. I wish that we could strike some kind of balance and chill out, but we just keep making mistakes on a national stage. It's going to make it hard for volunteers. And then you have, I could go on and on, but I think that like people like us have a more empathetic approach. And that's what the party as a whole has to get. They have to get that in order to win again, because they see Republican Party as stoic and they don't care. And guess what they do? They do things that are stoic, and the actions are like stoic, and pull yourself up and get it together. And it's like, what? Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So much in this. I'm so glad we got to sit down and talk. I asked the same 2 questions of everyone at the end of my podcast. Okay. What is your biggest defect of character?
Oh gosh. I carry everybody's problems. I do. I actually was just reading last night about how you can hear what people have to say and hear what they're going through, but you shouldn't lose your peace in the process. And that has been a challenge for me in just life, because I want to like help people and fix everything. So I'm learning that I cannot get so wrapped up in what everybody else has got going on.
In recovery, this might be helpful to you. In recovery, when you're like sponsoring, because I'm in recovery, and when you're sponsoring other people, there's this expression that has like saved me in life in general, even outside of helping people in addiction. It's carry the message, not the mess. And I love that.
Girl,
you might like that one. Yeah.
That's like, oh my gosh. You just, because you see all this brokenness and you're like, I don't like that. And it's like, I don't know it all, but a lot of times, a lot of people are feeling things because they're not loved, Yeah. What was the second question?
What's your biggest asset?
Oh gosh, I never met a stranger. I could talk to anybody.
I love that.
Yeah.
I never met a stranger. That's so good. Well, where can we find you? And first, before where people can find you on social media or whatever, what can the average person who's listening to this do to either support someone they believe in, or aside from just donating money, which is very important, what can they do?
Babysitting, do a meal train, walk, volunteer. Don't wait for a candidate to ask you what they need. Don't wait for a candidate to tell you what they need. Ask them what they need, because a lot of times they'll be carrying the weight on their shoulders, the whole world, the whole community. And it's going to be hard to ask for help more than you think. So those simple things like a meal and babysitting is like so crucial. Even Starbucks, like people don't realize, like just like having a break and like, I got a gift card, like somebody cared enough to give me a gift card. All those creature comforts are things that seem just so foreign when you're a candidate. And just volunteer and get other people to go with you.
Yeah, that was one of the things I did love about AOC. There's a lot I like about her, other than the fact that she's crazy. But I kind of
Yeah.
like that too.
I know. And her like, yeah, she's a fighter. I don't, whatever.
She's a fighter. She's effective and she's savvy. She will probably be president someday. When she put that picture of her shoes from like all the maybe she got these shoes from Goodwill. I don't know. They might not have even been her shoes. I'm cynical like that, but she posted a picture of her sneakers and how they had been like completely worn out from just knocking on doors and that kind of stuff. I was like, go girl. Like I respect a hustle.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like I mean, I know people that have walked with me. We've walked like 400 houses in a day. It's like a lot.
Yeah,
and then your
that's
kids are with
awesome.
you. And then it's like it takes on a whole new meaning, especially when you have a family. Because it's like I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
And then when I lost, like it's like, oh my God, I spent 4 years of my life doing this. Like, okay, what's next? So that's why I started my pack. And a lot of people start packs when they get out, when they stop running. And I'm not trying to be like that person, but I will say that I am working really hard to make sure that other candidates don't go through what I went through and helping them close that gap. And you have to raise the money because you have to pay for digital. You have to pay for all those things that you and I would be like, oh, that was just a social media post. It's like, no, it has to be promoted. It has to, you have to put money to it. I mean, you know how that goes just, for your podcast. And all that stuff requires money. And it doesn't come from the RNC. It comes from you. It comes from me.
Yeah.
So
can anyone start a PAC? What's a PAC exactly?
So it's a political action committee. That's what it stands for. And basically you can rate for politics is to raise for a specific thing. Like some people have PACs and call it America First and we're going to support, right. But I am hyper focused on candidates that are fighters and that they don't have all the money, but they have something, and they're building up their community. And so they need more money to do outreach. They need more money, especially towards the end where you're having to send out text. So even when you get a text message, it costs. Like it costs a candidate of money to send a text message. And that's why I always tell people, don't discard or just delete. It's like, hold up, wait, that costs money. And you wanted a Republican representative. Don't just unsubscribe and delete. You got because all of that is effort that they put in and went into hours to create. So when people donate, it's going to go to those candidates and it's going to go to, putting out messages across across for example, Northern California, to let people know what Democrats are doing to the state. A lot of Democrats don't even know what's happening with their legislature. And so we have to make them aware.
Well, they don't make it easy to find out either.
No.
Even when I was looking at trying to figure out what was going on with that bill and I was DMing you because people, I'm like, this should not be the way that I have to find this out, or you knowing somebody. It's like there should be an easier way to figure out what our government's up to, but they don't. It seems like a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, totally. And so that's why, again, if people want to see billboards of all the craziness that people are doing in California, it costs $11,000 for a billboard for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a lot of money.
And then people say, oh, well, the party has the money. It's like, no, they have operating costs. And they have to pay all the smart people, if you call them all them smart. So that's what the PAC is doing. And so it's, again, I don't want people to go through what I went through, and I want to help as many good people as possible.
So how can people donate to your PAC?
Yeah, so
can they?
Yes, yeah. Anyone across the nation can donate to the PAC. So it's Tamika PAC. Simple, because I was like, if I try to do some name, people are gonna forget. But my name is I feel like it's something that's different. So it's different for Republicans because they don't normally go and help a person named Tamika on purpose. I'm just joking, guys. But no, Tamika PAC. So Tamika TAMIKA PAC.org.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then where can we find you on social media?
Real Tamika Hamilton on Instagram, Tamika Hamilton on Facebook and Twitter. Yeah. I don't have anything else. I can't do all the other things. I got
no, I can't either.
Yeah.
Someone is like, you got to get on TikTok. And I'm like, I'm done. Too old for a new social media.
No, my
Like-
girlfriend calls it TikTokery. She's like, I'm not getting on TikTokery. I'm just like, oh my God. I think you would actually get a following on TikTok. Like, I feel like you could do it. Like, and it would be
You
funny.
like break through.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's girl. If these self-help people can get millions of followers and they're not helping people, you could actually help people.
Well, you probably could if you advised people about how to become candidates. Get that
Girl,
Gen Z audience out there knocking on doors.
I'm so boring. Like they're like, no. I'm too chill. Like I'm not saying anything crazy. Like so, but you brought out a little part of me that I usually keep quiet. So on the internet, so I'm gonna be interested in how people receive it. But
I think they'll love it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I believe so too.
All you can speak is your truth. Like whatever you're just talking about your own experience. I think it's good when people just don't like have to tiptoe around and be. I think you come across like very human and funny and relatable, and I can see why you came very close to winning in an impossible place like California.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I think of all the people you know now from that and all the connections you have, and how in the future it will be 100 times easier for you because you've got pathways and I think like God's going to do something, but like I always tell people, it's all up to people like us. You make people, you bring awareness. You kind of be the lead. Everyone wants somebody, like they want a king, but why can't you be a king in your neighborhood? Why can't you ballot harvest yourself? You don't need the party's permission. I always tell people, like, every time I hear ballot harvest, I think of somebody like organ harvesting. I don't know why. Just like...
Oh my gosh. But I know. And then we got to like you said, we need to come up with another name, but it's so true though. Like, girl, like I want people to be empowered to lead on their own. And then if you have a candidate, you start just like the Blaze did with Tucker. People need to be coming out of their comfort zone. Like people need to get ready for we have to stop treating candidates like celebrities and start treating them like the public servants that they should be. So it go back to strong, unapologetic people like you. And I appreciate you so much because I swear sometimes I'm like, am I crazy? And then I'm like, okay, no, Bridget said this too. Okay, I'm not crazy.
No, you might be crazy.
No, I actually like AOC too. She's got a hustle. She's like, she does. She has a hustle. It's like, what? Yeah. And I mean, and I even like Gavin Newsom, and people are just like, he's so horrible. I'm like, he's working, y'all. So I look at what the other side is doing.
This is something I think too, like I really took from Christopher Rufo's interview where he kept talking about like his opponents. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess these people are your opponents, especially if you're talking about like running for office and stuff like that. And when you think of it that way, it's just a different mentality because I'm always like, oh, it's all just people. But yeah, I guess when you're in like the battle, you've gotta be ready to fight. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm interested to see how this year plays out. We'll have to have you back on when the politics start.
Yes. After the primary. Well, here's the thing. The holidays are coming. So school starts in like 3 weeks for us. I don't know about it. No, your baby's not in school. And then
not in school, but I think in Texas it's like 3 weeks too.
Yeah, and this is like something for your listeners and your viewers to pay attention to. Is like, unless, for example, DeSantis turns this around, it's kind of like a wrap because the holidays are going to come. People are checked out. Campaigns slow down. January hits. People start ramping up a little bit. But once the ballots drop in February, it's ballot chasing time. And so unless he fundraises a ton of money and gets people to go collect ballots and does ballot harvesting, it might be Trump. So,
right.
Yeah. So that's where we are. So it's just, but we still have local candidates and like we talk about congressional candidates. That's the focus. Like, that's my focus. I am not focused on the presidential race at all.
So when do we know who has the the primary is in March, and that's when we know?
No, so the
Okay.
primary, so once the nomination period ends, you'll know when November 8th, I believe, is the date for, like, that's the last time anyone can do anything, like November 8th. And then the voter guide will go out, and then you'll see all the candidates. But even then, anyone can still Google who's running in district whatever, or who's running for city council. You don't have to wait until the voter guide goes out to know who's running for office.
For the primary?
For the primary, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, when are those results come out in March?
So March.
Like, when do we know if Trump is the nominee?
We could learn,
for example,
that day.
Just national.
We could know that day on the 5th. Like for California, we have 169 delegates. And so that's what everybody's fighting for right now. But he has to win California. And
I don't think a single person has come out, like, for DeSantis, no congressional support at all.
Oh, I haven't noticed that. Okay.
I was reading that somewhere.
Yeah, I need to go look at. Yeah, so he has to. We have to see how the primary shakes out, but early voting starts a month prior, so we have that whole month, and then California, as you know, takes their whole 30 days. But we'll know that night if DeSantis or Trump won. Like we'll just know. We'll just know. It's not, and plus they have all those other candidates in the field, and it's splitting the vote like crazy. So, and Trump has the
when's the convention?
August.
This August?
No, next August. And then,
next August.
Yeah, next August. But then, Bridget, they're so freaking smart. They're doing it right before ballots drop.
Ballots drop. For the actual general election.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They're doing.
And when's the Republican convention?
I don't even know, because I don't even watch it, because it's like, I don't want to see Mike Lindell.
It's kind of cringe.
Yeah, it's cringe. I'm like, I don't want to see the pillow guy. Like, sorry, I don't want to see the pillow guy. I don't want to see Carrie Lake. I don't want to see any people that have lost elections and got outworked and are stealing money from my boomers. I don't want to see it. I'm done.
Stealing money from my boomers.
I love them. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. They're like, she's fighting
Milwaukee
for our
in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It says the RNC is scheduled to take place in Milwaukee in 2024. The exact dates have been announced for the Republican National Committee on December 21st, 2022, but were not mentioned in this. When is it? Oh, here we go. July 15th to the 18th, 2024.
In July, like
July, yeah.
Timing is everything, because we're talking school. People are going to be paying attention this, summer, and so the DNC is doing it after school starts for most people. And I don't make the rules, Bridget. I just don't think that the timing is right to do it in July. But when you think about it, then it's Labor Day, and then you're going to be high on Obama telling you that they can change the world until the ballots drop. So, whatever. I don't make the rules.
August 19th to 20. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's after everyone goes back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Savvy.
It's very smart, because then everybody's going to be like, they're going to be relaxed, focused to some degree. And it's right before Labor Day. And then you're going to have all your messaging put out there, the DNC all the highlights. I don't get it. I don't make the rules, Bridget. Just maybe next movie.
They just seem like more sexy and young too,
Oh yeah, they're gonna have like hot performers. They're probably gonna have Taylor Swift, probably Beyonce. Like, they're gonna have all the things. We got who do we have? We have I don't know, somebody.
I don't know about we. I'm not sure I can include myself in this mix. They don't even have Diamond and what's her name anymore.
I know. It's so sad. That makes me so sad. It's like,
I know.
We don't have Diamond and Silk. Who do we have? I don't even know. I feel like,
who's that country singer?
I don't know.
What's his name? Not the one.
No, don't even. He's gonna come too. No, I would rather have the lady that's like,
Kid Rock.
Yeah,
you have Kid Rock.
No, I'm not seeing that. I don't want to see Kid Rock. He's like scraggly hair with a their gut. That's not sexy. I want the lady that says, that MFer is not real. I'd rather see her. Like, I want to find her. We haven't found her. Find her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we could talk all day. But yeah, I appreciate you. Again,
I appreciate you too.
If anyone needs help and wants to know how to run for office, please contact me. My email is, I'm going to regret this, vote Tamika Hamilton at Gmail. It is so important that you don't sit back. September is around the corner. And if you live in another state, that's no problem. I know people elsewhere that could help you. And it's just all about just getting out there. Good people leave because they get tired, but we got to like find that stamina, because you get mad when you see the bad people, but it's because all the good people left. So just get involved. Your voice needs to be heard. You have the answers. You don't need a degree, and you don't need to have prior experience. You don't let anybody lie to you and say you do. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
It's time for the weekly check-in with Bridget and cousin Maggie. Did we talk about the Bitcoin conference?
No.
It was really fun.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, I'm orange-pilled now.
What does that mean?
It means I'm like a Bitcoin maximalist.
Oh, okay.
Bitcoin maxi, as they say.
What does Bitcoin maximalist mean?
Well, in the crypto world, there are so many different cryptos, and Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, but it's Bitcoin maximalists consider it like the most stable, and they generally only invest in Bitcoin. That's what I learned.
Okay.
I learned a lot. So I did this like Bit Block Boom. I think that's what it was.
Bit Block Boom. Yeah.
Bit Block Boom conference, where I was just kind of creating content, and I was a host of essentially a show where I interviewed all kinds of like huge names, I guess, in this space, like Jimmy Song, and people from Swan, it's like this, it's a whole world.
Yeah.
It's like a whole entire scene
that normies who don't know anything about Bitcoin know nothing about.
No. And so I was supposed to be like a normie, kind of explain this stuff to me. Like I was joking, not even 5. I'm like, I feel like 5-year-olds get this. Maybe explain it to me like I'm a boomer. And they were so smart. It was really interesting. I mean, I learned, I think there was a lot of talk about how money is broken, which I've been hearing from one of my mentors for years, who's in finance. There were a lot of men in finance who recognize that money is fundamentally broken, and at the rate that we're spending, it can only be devalued and eventually be worth nothing.
Awesome.
And so they kind of got, seeing that writing on the wall, they got interested in Bitcoin. There were a lot of stories about people who could have invested in it, heard about it early, were in finance, and then didn't, and could be like multi-millionaires had they done so, and got into it later because it kind of proved its worth over time. So even though they say that it's unstable, they'll argue that it's still trending upward, and there's only a certain number of Bitcoin that can ever be mined. I learned about like a little bit about mining, which is insane. And I learned about self-custody, and I learned a lot. I think the most interesting thing was talking to people from other countries like Venezuela and Russia and El Salvador, and countries where two things. One, they're trying to get money to people and not get charged 30, 40, 80% or whatever. Sometimes people will try and send $400 home, and it'll cost them $80 to do that.
The exchange rate or
it's
something?
Not the exchange
like
rate. It's like what Western Union will take. It's fees that people who are transferring these currencies will take. And with Bitcoin, it's nothing. And a lot of people were talking about the power of, it's like a whole parallel world, man. It's nuts. And they're talking about how if you kind of memorize your phrase or your whatever, you can walk across any border with money, with as much money as you have, as long as you just know your kind of password in your mind. And you can't do that. You can't you can't go anywhere to $10,000, more than $10,000 in cash without raising alarms.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just how in America, the people from other countries were like, you view Bitcoin differently than we do in our countries because your dollar has been relatively stable and it's like the standard, the global standard. And so for them, their currencies have been devalued. You know, one woman was Russian, Katie the Russian. She's like a big person in the scene. And she was saying, is it fair that because I'm Russian, my currency has been completely devalued because of geopolitical stuff that I have no part of? Mm-hmm. And in Venezuela, obviously, they've experienced hyperinflation and their money is worth nothing. And so these people were saying the difference is that they see Bitcoin as a necessity, or they're just ahead of the curve of seeing Bitcoin as a necessity. And it's more stable than their own currency for them to put their money in Bitcoin.
Right.
And so that was kind of like revelatory in some respects. And then there's this idea that money, like all money goes to one. Or there's some expression, and I don't think that's actually correct, but like it always flows to one. There's always like a gold standard, or there's always one currency that is the, you know, like right now it's the dollar, but it could eventually be Bitcoin globally. And this is kind of what they're all banking on. And I was asking the guy who was doing the video, he's not like into Bitcoin either. I was like, what do you think? And he's like, I think it's as valuable as they believe it is. And there's a lot of people who will make a lot of money the more it gets adopted, you know, mass adoption. But I also see how, my friend and mentor was like, being orange pilled also leads to being gold and silver pilled.
Right.
Because I'm like, what happens when the fucking grid goes down?
Right.
And your money is like all digital.
I know. I was literally sitting here thinking, being like, so invest in Bitcoin and gold.
Yeah, that
like
seems,
both.
That would seem to be but it's cool. The people are really interesting. They're creating, you know, there's like veterans in the space and not as many women as I'd like. I talked to a woman about energy and mining and how it's this myth that it takes up all of this, like energy, that it's bad for the environment. And it's really a fascinating space.
I mean, so the fact that there's like a limited amount, which I guess is true of gold, and it's true of probably, you know, like our currency in terms of the fact that you can't just keep printing money without devaluing.
That's what makes it valuable, is that it's scarce. There's scarcity.
Is that something that is like we're gonna run out and like we're gonna hit the end in 10 years? This is
something I learned. The last Bitcoin won't be mined until 21 something.
Okay.
Because the way that it's very complicated, but essentially the mining is solving equations, like complicated math equations that get harder the more people are mining, and get easier the less people are online trying to mine. And it's supposed to be like every 10 minutes, one Bitcoin is mined, and there's a way that they keep it that it's like so much shit. And somebody's like, you don't need to like be down in the weeds to understand all of this.
Right.
And one of the things I was realizing when I was interviewing these people who were talking to me about inflation and I'm like, I don't understand money.
Right.
So who am I to be like, I don't understand Bitcoin. I don't understand electricity either.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of shit
You're like, I don't understand economics, you know?
I don't understand fucking anything. It's really what I walked away from that. I don't, and I don't need to know how electricity works to necessarily use it.
Right.
So it made me, and everyone's like, it's too late to get in, but it's actually not really too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's still actually pretty early. We haven't even reached mass adoption, but when you talk to some of these people in other countries, they're definitely like El Salvador is way ahead of the game in terms of just having the ability to use it like a currency.
As a currency in their country. Mm-hmm. Like just going to buy something with it.
Yeah, I learned about Lightning because like Bitcoin's really slow, and then they needed this like platform to be able to transfer it on, which is Lightning. It's so above my brain capacity. I'm just a moron writer, but I do feel like I have a better. It was helpful. I met a lot of really interesting people. I want to interview them for this podcast because the other thing that I took away from it was, and Katie the Russian really pointed this out. She said, when people start realizing, like there's this idea of kind of taking charge of your situation and your money, and they're doing something about these problems that they foresee with money
and the financial instability they feel.
Yeah. And so it's this empowering and like self-reliant attitude that Katie was saying she sees spread into like every other aspect of their life. Like one of the things that she does is it's this company called Plan B, and she helps people get passports for other countries, which of course I'm very interested in. So she helps there are all these different nations that allow you to get passports for different reasons, and she'll help you get a secondary citizenship somewhere so that you can get out of your country if you need to. And she was saying that she just sees it. Like the first guy I interviewed, I asked everybody, my one question was like, what's your elevator pitch for Bitcoin? Because it's so complicated often. And one guy said there was a Iranian journalist and she was reporting from the ground, and her country and the government and her husband, like her family, her husband, nobody would allow this woman to work or get paid, and she was paid in Bitcoin, and it allowed her to do this work and journalism that otherwise would be forbidden and not, like, she wouldn't be able to get any compensation for because of where she is. So that to me is like very empowering, and she doesn't need, all she needs again is like to memorize her password or her code or whatever. She doesn't need to like have anything. You can just keep it in your head until Elon puts chips in our brain. But it was interesting. So I was going to say the thing I took away from it mostly is like, there was a lot of optimism in a time where it feels very confusing and dark, and felt like people were taking control. And there's people there was a really interesting guy who does crowd health who actually advertises on a lot of podcasts in the space. And Andy's like this amazing guy comes from healthcare, but he's trying to like reinvent healthcare, or at least disrupt it. And they're just trying to like think out of the box and do things differently. And I have so much respect for that because it generates optimism and hopefulness at a time when it's almost like they're creating like a parallel world.
Right. Because they're staring at the collapse of these things that they foresee are going to fall apart. And so they're kind of trying to create alternatives right now.
Yeah.
And actually do something about it rather than just waiting for the collapse.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And most people aren't even, that was the other interesting thing too, is like Americans see Bitcoin as an asset or an investment, and other countries see it as a necessity.
Right.
But that could change.
Right. Certainly.
We keep freaking printing money like it's going out of style.
Right.
Which it is.
Right.
So it's fun.
Crazy. So I mean, have all the interviews you done been published?
No, I don't know what they're doing with them.
Okay.
I don't even know if they knew what they were doing with them.
They
I
just
don't even
wanted
know
them.
how I looked. I was like, I could look like shit. I have no idea. I had no control over this, but it was fun for me. And it was like interview. And the people were like, how are you doing this? Just talking to all these people. But it was kind of like that thing I did for the Illuminati. When I did like the WEF thing or whatever it was. Remember when I did like the speed interviews?
Kind of.
It was online.
When was that?
a
Oh,
while
yeah.
ago. And I interviewed all these interesting people, but it was like 10-minute interviews and I did like 20 of them. It definitely, by the end of the day, my brain was like fried because I was trying to take in so much information and keep up with these people who are brilliant.
Right. Cool. I wish I could have been there.
It was really fun. I mean, it's like, I just like all the people that I get to meet at those things. They're always good for me. You just never know. And maybe I'll become Bitcoin maximalist.
Maybe you will.
Tune in next week for another riveting episode that will change your life, help you get out of your own way, and solve all the world's problems. I want to thank our composer, Jared Elias, my co-producer and cousin, Maggie, and all of you out there listening. This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.